What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. PJ Washington is due for an extension, and the Lakers need a two-way forward. PJ already has chemistry with Luka and could fit that 20-year-old starter you mentioned. Would you move Gabe Dalton Gabe Dalton and a pick for him? No, I would not. I think PJ Washington is a power forward. I think the Lakers need a smaller and more athletic player at the 2 or 3. I think there's a lot of big picture conversations the Lakers need to have in terms of what type of player they want at certain position groups. So if LeBron is your power forward now and he's going to play 2 more seasons, you need a big picture power forward plan. But I don't think PJ Washington fits that big picture power forward plan, multiple years into the future. Maybe Rui Hachimura is that, but, obviously you could potentially look to move him in the short term. I don't see PJ Washington as a guy that is a demonstrable upgrade in the short term or in the long term. So I wouldn't to me, I'd be looking for more of we've been talking about Aaron Nesmith. We've been talking about, Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins obviously is a little too old, but a player that fits more of that 2-3, a better athlete who can guard on the perimeter better. And that power forward position, I think, is a little bit more easy to replace, if that makes sense. So I don't think PJ Washington makes sense as the kind of guy the Lakers should be going after. I've seen you say over and over the Lakers need to upgrade their athleticism. Does the last 3 signings help with that? Also, do you think it would help the Lakers defense if Vando played more at the point of attack and picked up ball handlers full court instead of being used to rebound because we had so much trouble? No, I don't think any of these moves markedly improve their athleticism. It's a mild upgrade. If both DeAndre Ayton and Marcus Smart are healthy, they're certainly more athletic. But they're still in the bottom tier of NBA teams in terms of overall athleticism. I will say it's more complicated than that because the Lakers are definitely a better version of what they were, which is a slow down power basketball team. But they just they have not added athletic versatility. Athletic versatility is what gives you better chance of surviving 4 rounds against 4 very different types of teams. This doesn't mean they can't win. They certainly can win, but they're more vulnerable now to certain types of teams. And that makes it harder for them to win 4 rounds. For instance, one of the teams that I've talked about ever since they matched up in the regular season at the end of last year, I think the Warriors match up really well with the Lakers and advantage Warriors. They're just so much faster, right? That's a team where if the Lakers got markedly more athletic, I think the Lakers would match up better with the Golden State. But as currently constructed, I think they would have some issues with Golden State, potentially a lot of issues. Pulling slow perimeter athletes in DeAndre Ayton who can really struggle in complicated coverages out to the perimeter, and then having a bunch of iffy defenders on the back line rotating around, it could get really scary in that particular type of matchup, right? But who knows? Maybe you avoid Golden State. Maybe you catch, teams that you match up better against along the way, and it doesn't end up being an issue. But chances are, if you play 4 rounds, you're going to end up running into a team that can attack your weakness. And right now, the Lakers still have a pretty substantial weakness in terms of that athleticism. And that, by the way, kind of going back to the PJ Washington piece, I don't think PJ Washington's a decent athlete, but I don't view him as a floor-changing athlete for this Lakers team, the way that an Andrew Wiggins would be, for example, or an Aaron Nesmith, right? So that's a big part of why I don't think PJ Washington's the type of guy for them to put real assets on the table for. Next question. What improvements can Oklahoma City make individually or as a team to convince you and others that they can be the team to break the curse, this post-Warriors curse, and win back-to-back championships? It's all about internal improvement. Their margins will shrink over the course of the next few years as it gets more and more expensive to retain everybody. Everyone just got their big deal this last offseason, right? But because of the timeline of when they kick in, they won't actually reap some of the negative effects of that in their payroll for a couple of years, but that will eventually happen. And when it does, and they have less depth and they have less surrounding talent, all of a sudden the work of guys like Chet Holmgren and J-Dub and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will become that much more important. right? It was more of like a young, flawed group showing a lot of ups and downs. Like even with Shea, we saw Shea play some really bad postseason games this year. We saw Chet face some extremely low lows. J-Dub early in the Denver series, some really low lows. They were able to get away with that because they had such insane supporting talent, which is going to fade over the course of the next couple of years. And those inconsistencies will become a problem, right? So internal improvement is their pathway. Now, that's more of like a big picture thing. This next season, Oklahoma City is more or less running it back. But even within that context, the rest of the league got better. Maybe not in the Eastern Conference, but certainly in the Western Conference, right? Houston, demonstrably better. Denver, demonstrably better. The Clippers and Lakers, obviously a lot of variance there regarding injuries and some older players playing up to some of their younger capability, but both the LA teams are potentially better than they were last year. Anthony Edwards, if he continues to improve, potentially better, right? The Warriors with Horford, and if they bring back DeAnthony Melton, and if they make a trade at some point, they could be potentially better. So the West is better. Therefore, OKC's margin for error shrinks, right? Even with bringing back the roster. So what needs to happen in order for Oklahoma City to make that curse that no one can repeat, no one can even make the finals twice in a row, curse go away? For Chet, I think it's his offensive polish. I thought he was awesome on defense throughout the majority of the playoff run. Not really a whole lot you can get into on that end of the floor with him, but consistent catch and shoot jump shooting. Some of his decision making, some of the ways he was forcing the issue against guys, particularly like Miles Turner, when he would try to go one-on-one against him and kind of like go away from the flow of the offense. Some of the turnovers and just fumbling of the ball in the middle of the floor, like just becoming a more reliable, higher floor offensive player, I think will be big for Chet Holmgren. J-Dub and his consistency. Obviously, he was great for large chunks of the playoff run, but he had his moments. He had his moments specifically in the Denver series where he really, really struggled. And that inconsistency against a tougher matchup, like let's just put it this way. Let's say they face Denver again and the exact same situation happens, but you have a better Denver team. If J-Dub plays that poorly for chunks of that series, you lose to Denver, right? So J-Dub's consistency on the offensive end is going to be big. Shea's decision-making. We saw massive swings in the way Oklahoma City's offense operated in the finals based on Shea and just his willingness to take what the defense is giving him early in games and how he can establish rhythm and flow within his offense. Him being consistent in that regard, him learning the lesson, him replicating the successes and cutting the failures, that's going to be how Shea becomes a more consistent force. And those three things happening are going to be the key to them actually being able to repeat in a much better Western Conference. Smaller things too, like spot-up shooting, reliable spot-up shooting from guys like Cason Wallace and Lou Dort. There's a bunch of different things we can get into, but for the most part, it's going to be the improvement of their stars.